Kathy. Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler Podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair, there's space for you at this table. Welcome back, friends and guests. I thought that I would have a special interim episode addressing something that I've heard from a few of you, and a common trap for those of us who are high achievers, those who just want to achieve more, and really all of us as human beings. We have such an ease of comparison lately. With the uptick of social media in the past decade and more people signing on, we've got, influencers, athletes, celebrities, plus the mom down the street, all posting to Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or Snapchat, giving us their best view of their best day, lit with the perfect selfie ring and color-corrective side lighting. We log on to mindlessly scroll or to, quote-unquote, be inspired, but often we come away with less inspiration and more irritation with ourselves. We listen to a podcast by a host that we enjoy or aspire to be more like, and we get annoyed and think that we don't do life well because we don't do it just like them. Social comparison theory was first put forth in 1954 by psychologist Leon Festinger. He postulated that this came about as a protection mechanism and an assessment of danger. We do this as a way of evaluating ourselves. Our brain's social cognition network has a key element that consists of making instant judgments of others and holding them in comparison with ourselves. Do we need to be nervous around this person, or do they make us feel safe? How do I stack up in the food chain? And generally we do this in domains that are important to us, such as physical appearance, wealth, time management, or any number of other goals that we hold in high esteem. With this tendency to compare as an innate part of our makeup, we compare first, then adjust for the outcomes. So we don't tend to compare ourselves widely with celebrities, say Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. We don't think about them and then compare our wealth to theirs. Perhaps we might compare ourselves physically to a famous person like a Taylor Swift or a Katy Perry or whoever you're looking at, but it's momentary and it usually doesn't linger. Our psyche recognizes that that is not our comparison. They probably have private chefs and trainers or childcare at the very least. We recognize that Elon is further along in his career than we are, and again, probably has childcare. And he's a man, so childcare may or may not have even been a thought. Researchers identify the main focus of our comparison to be named comparison targets. They tend to be most like us in some observable traits. So for me, I would look at another 40-something homeschool mother, and she would be my comparison target. Perhaps she totally has her stuff together. Maybe her husband is a pilot who makes tons of money, so she's able to stay home. Even though if she wanted to, she could go to work as an artist because her postings are just that good. So you could see how that comparison target can cause someone to spiral. These people also tend to be within our personal orbit, not necessarily a social media scion who affects our algorithm with her highlight reel every day. Now, if this has come about in our human consciousness as a protection mechanism, what good can come from this? It all depends on how we process this information. This upward and downward comparison can serve a purpose if and only if it brings about inspiration to do more ourselves. Self-improvement comes about through noticing the similarities to someone superior and making small changes to our own lives in order to reach this superior location ourselves. Self-enhancement and view of self can be affected when we notice these similarities and they intensify our realization we can do it. Perhaps it's she went to the same college as I did, or perhaps it's she's using the same curriculum as me. We see a similarity between our comparison target and ourselves, and it gives us that extra boost of confidence that we need to take that next step. But when we look and see those differences as insurmountable, or berate ourselves when our projected changes don't work out as quickly, smoothly, or immediately as we had desired, we can find our sense of self corroded with negative self-talk and a feeling of lessness constantly. When we are adolescents, we develop our sense of self from the way others view us. This is one of the reasons that many of the listeners to this podcast homeschool, so that our parental love and reasonable appraisal of our children would hold more sway than those of peers who also have no idea who they themselves are yet. But my metrics say that it is mostly grown men and women who are listening to this podcast. So why do we still seek for that dopamine hit from positive social comparison? A stable sense of self comes from knowing who you are, absent any social input. Do you have that? Do I? Whatever the reason, I have had 2 dear friends tell me that they listened to the podcast and it made them feel like they were behind, like they weren't doing life well. This broke my heart. My purpose in researching, scripting, recording, editing, all the things for this podcast, for all of you, is for inspiration, to excite you about possibilities. By sharing a little of my story every week, I pray you can build your own story more and more into the life you want. That's what I'm hoping to get across. Back to that stable sense of self. When we scroll social media mindlessly, searching others' feeds and then inevitably comparing, how is that serving us? Statistics show that when you interact with your social media channels, the comparison dump isn't as severe. When you are posting pics, sharing your life, and enjoying those who post around you as if you were sitting at coffee with them, it invokes less depressive feelings about ourselves and more feelings of social acceptance. So, mindless scrolling, cross it out. Interacting online, check. Okay. My personal social media habits are limited. I post to Instagram, but I don't follow many people. Pretty much just John Fogerty of Cleaning's Clearwater Revival because he's my favorite, and a bunch of sweet wild animal videos. Some artists and a few friends. I'm almost never on Facebook, but when I am, I do respond to others' postings about their families or their trips. I'm one of those people who does look through all of your videos and all of your pictures of your most recent trip to Italy. I find it fascinating and inspiring, and I usually write comments on about half of them. I don't have a TikTok or a Snapchat account. My real algorithm on Facebook consists of the psychological study of birth order, or memetics comedians like TJ Taryn, plus the Holderness family and Dude Dad and a few stand-up comics. I watch them a few times a week for maybe 10 minutes at a time, and then I get off. I'm hard enough on myself. I don't need a highway of information streaming at me at the speed of light on how everyone has their stuff together more than I do because I'm looking at their posts from, again, the very best moments of their best days. Now, homeschoolers, we have our own brand of comparison, don't we? Because not only did that mom's child get into Harvard, but she was responsible for it. It takes the whole humble brag on our children to a new level, doesn't it? The world sees us as responsible for everything about our children as moms, and now we're the teachers too. We're also responsible for their education. But this is why I have loved the philosophy of Charlotte Mason for so many years. In Parents and Children on page 260, she says, "A child is a person in whom all possibilities are present now at this very moment, not to be educed after years and efforts manifold on the part of the educator or parent." Everyone, it isn't on us to be responsible for every single thing that our children become or do or try. Just as it isn't on the mama down the street whose kids are in brick and mortar school and who works 2 jobs to pay for their food and clothing. One of my sons may turn out to be a pilot. Another may work for UPS. Another may own a mechanic shop. Maybe one of them will be a bookstore seller. I don't know. But no matter what, I want them to be what the Lord wants them to be. If I truly trust that, the work of the Holy Spirit in my homeschool, there can be a profound sense of peace when confronted with the comparison trap that wants to engulf me. I don't believe it has to do with less time on social media, less mindless scrolling, more focus-driven in-person social events, although all of these are important. I think the thing it has to do with the most is trust. Trusting the Lord of all creation that He has got your kids, that He has got your life, and He has the kids of that mom down the street. And the most we can all do is support one another. If we can't get away from comparison, if it is truly hardwired, as so many experts say, then use it in its very best form. Use it to inspire, use it to congratulate, and don't just keep it internal. Let that mom know that her post was lovely, that you made cupcakes for the first time because hers were so pretty. I have a friend who is an absolutely amazing baker. I mean, wow. I had a fairy tale themed birthday party this year. I was Snow White, and she made me a Snow White cake with a candied apple on the top that looked like it came from a cake competition show. Now, I'll divulge. I could have used that experience as a moment to ruminate on how I'm not a baker. I mean, I can make cookies and bread and muffins, but I don't do it a lot because of time, and my cake's always lean, kind of funny. But instead, I was inspired. Over the liminal space between Christmas and New Year's, I made a parsnip cake with homemade fennel caramel icing. It still leaned, but I even piped the icing with a bag and everything. Now, if you bake, you are definitely laughing at me, but this was huge. My boys were all attentive and telling me how delicious it was and how beautiful it looked, and despite its droopy side icing in one spot, they really, really complimented me. But I also sent a picture to my baking friend and told her she inspired me to bake and take a little extra time to ice it and make it lovely. I don't know if that meant anything to her. I may never know that. But a word of kindness to any other mom may save her on a day that she is stuck in a negative comparison trap. One last word on that. I have a friend who was truly burnt out on social media. When out for a run together, she was telling me of her frustration at the lie that is presented by others on their feeds. She brought up one friend who had just had a baby and privately, to my friend, was confiding deep feelings of postpartum depression. However, this person's feed showed a mom glowing with new baby warmth. This mom, who in private was struggling to even connect with this new tiny human, was posting things about how much she loved having this little person around. My friend was feeling jaded, hurt, and frustrated with that friend themselves. I thought for a moment and then spoke. I told her as it occurred to me, perhaps those posts were the times that day that she felt she got it right. She got something right. She may have thought, in this moment, I did it. Now, yes, it's possible she's just a liar, but what is more probable? That she wants to put forth falsehood? Or that she just needed to document a moment, one moment that day, where she was able to present what she wanted to be? Where she didn't have to negatively compare herself to others? One moment that made her feel like she wasn't a failure. Speaking of negative comparisons, we are truly so hard on ourselves. Is this way of treating yourself amounting to anything positive? Is it spurring you to greater things? I would hazard a guess that the answer is no. If you're saying something in your mind or heart that you wouldn't ever say to your best friend, why on earth are you saying it to yourself? If you are sending sweet texts to a friend to show how she inspired you to bake a little prettier, why are you telling yourself that you are a fat, lazy housewife whose children won't amount to anything? None of those things are true. We all have to be careful not to judge every day against our best day, where all the other days feel as if they come up short, or our worst day, where just the memory of it makes us wince and shudder. or to judge our worst day with someone else's best day. Remember in the words of Phil Wickham from his song, "There's Joy in the House of the Lord"? We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. We are royalty, women, running free. Don't let harsh judgment of yourself steal this truth from you. So let's recap. When we choose comparison targets, only use it to inspire or elevate your own life, not to feel inferior in a way that causes you to ruminate on your past choices in a negative way. Second, a stable sense of self comes from knowing who you are absent any social input. If you're struggling with your sense of self, focus on this. Pray. Ask the Lord, how does He see you? What words would He use to describe you? What does He see as your accomplishments? I had to do this for years. I have wanted to start a podcast, to speak at homeschool conferences, and to encourage homeschool moms on a wide scale since I went to my first conference 10 years ago. But my focus had to be on my special needs boys, raising them, learning about their diagnoses, homeschooling them in a way that meets their needs and amplifies their view of self, whilst pointing them always to the Lord. So all of my dreams took a back seat in a necessary season. My worth couldn't be in what I was accomplishing in an outward view. I had to listen to the Lord tell me that what I was doing for the kingdom was raising men who would love their wives as Christ loved the church, teaching a dyslexic to read so he could truly be anything that he wanted to be, spending time teaching autistic children about facial expressions that I created on paper plate puppets so they would have an understanding of emotions. This was my good work for years. It was a pittance to several others that I knew, friends from college who don't have neurodivergent children and expected me to be on the public speaking circuit already. I could have fallen apart. I came pretty close a couple of times if I didn't remember to take my sense of self from the Lord and who He says I am, what He says I need to do, right now, in this very season. Third, our children are born persons, not blank slates for us to write on. There's really precious little that is fully ours to form. We must trust. They are the Lord's. They are only on loan to us. Live like this is true. Fourth, congratulate and encourage others around you. Be that brighter light in the world. Help those who may be suffering with things that you don't even know by letting them know how they've positively impacted you. And finally, don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to your best friend. If you wouldn't tell her she doesn't look good in that blouse, don't tell yourself that. If you wouldn't tell her that she's failing her kids because she yelled once at them or 12 times, don't say that to yourself. We are all humans, ladies, with emotional ups and downs, and those pesky hormones. Kindness to others and yourself. I pray that my podcast is inspiring and not discouraging, that it pushes you to greater things, and I want to know about it, as if we are all at coffee together, encouraging each other in person. Please let me know. You, my listeners, truly mean so much to me. If this was helpful, please follow the show. I've noticed a growing group of friends in Fenimore, Wisconsin, so shout out to you ladies or gents or whoever is listening there. New episodes come out every Tuesday. Please leave me 5 stars and a written review wherever you are listening to it, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I would super appreciate this. It really affects the algorithm. Share me with a friend. Let me know how you like it and if there are any topics you want discussed. And remember, everyone, I believe in you.